In this class, we will consider this idea, commutator of two operators. To understand this, let us consider these two sequential Stern-Gerlach experiments. In the first experiment, we have a beam of particles in a general state. Let's say this is a spin-half system. These particles are spin-half particles. So this initial beam, the spin is in random orientation. First, this does the first Stern-Gerlach apparatus does a selective measurement. Okay, it acts as a filter. So here we measure spin in the z direction. We get nearly, so there are 2000 particles here. So nearly 1000 particles will be having upspin in the state Sz plus, and the other half will be having downspin in the state Sz minus. And this downspin particles are blocked. And this is our input beam to the second Stern-Gerlach experiment. Okay, so we start our we can say we start our next two phases. The second and third phase is important. So the input here is let's start from here. There are 1000 particles all in the state Sz plus. So this is an example of a pure ensemble. Okay, we have seen this before also. So let's start from here. First we measure Sz. So this is our input state. First we measure Sz again. So this is already all these 1000 particles are in Sz plus state. If we again measure Sz, we know that they will remain the same eigenstate. Already they are in the eigenstate of Sz operator, so they remain the same eigenstate. So we get all the 1000 particles in the Sz plus state. Then we measure Sx. Then what happens is nearly 50% particles appear in the Sx plus state, which is Sx equal to plus h cos by 2. And the other 50% particles will appear in the Sx minus state with Sx equal to minus h cos by 2. This is what we get. So if we try to write this in mathematical form, what is the situation here? First we measure Sz, and from this input, on this input state, first we measure Sz and then we measure Sx. So let's start with this input state. This is the input state Sz plus, this is our ket. Okay, our pure ensemble. And then first we measure Sz, then we measure Sx. We know that operators act from left to right on the ket vector. So the first measurement is Sz, the physical variable Sz, so its operator will appear first here, and then we measure the physical variable Sx, its operator will appear next. This is the two operators acts on him, then acts on the ket in input state sequentially, Sz first, Sx next. And what is the final outcome? If this is some 1000 particles, first we measure Sz and then we measure Sx, we get nearly 500 particles in Sx plus state and 500 particles in nearly, this is not exact, it is only a representation, representative figure. So nearly 50% particles in Sx plus state and Sx nearly 50% particles in Sx minus state. So from 1000, the number of particles reduces to 500. So the reduction in intensity is 50%. Okay. And so we can say the probability of getting Sx plus state is 50%, probability of getting Sx minus state is also 50%. Okay, that means the probability is 1 by 2. So you can write the outcome is we can say a combination, a linear combination of Sx plus state and Sx minus state. And the expansion coefficient will be square root of the probability. The probability is 1 by 2. So the expansion coefficient in each case will be 1 by root 2. We know that the square of the expansion coefficient gives you the probability of getting each eigenket, right? So what you get here is 1 by root 2 times Sx plus 1 by root 2 times Sx minus. So this is the mathematical statement of this experiment, this measurement, sequential measurement, Sz first and Sx next, like this. Now consider the opposite case. This part is same. Okay, we have 1000 particles. We have using the first Stern-Gerlach apparatus, we made a selective measurement and we have constructed a pure ensemble of 1000 particles in S set plus state. Then what you do is, first we measure Sx. Okay. Then what you get? Nearly half the particles appear in Sx plus state, half the particles appear in Sx minus state, as we have got here. Okay. And then we have to measure S set. Okay, so let's don't block any of the particles here. Then that will be, that will cause a reduction in density. Let's don't block that, because in this second phase we have passed all the particles to the third phase, right? So in the same way, pass all the particles to the third phase. So both this 500 particles in Sx plus state and 500 particles in Sx minus state are given to the next Stern-Gerlach measurement. This time we measure S set. So we have reversed the order. Here first we measure S set, then we measure Sx. Here first we measure Sx and then we measure S set for the same input. For the same input state, 1000 particles in a particular input state. Okay, so what you get here, again what you get is, so there are again the input particles are 1000, half of them are in Sx plus state, half of them are in Sx minus state. But here the outcome is again nearly 500 particles in S set plus state, 500 particles in S set minus state. Okay, so starting with this 1000 particles, when you reach the final state, the intensity reduces by half, 50%. And but the states are different. Here the states are Sx plus and Sx minus, whereas here the states are S set plus and S set minus. So the reduction in intensity is by 50% from 1000 to 500 here also, but the states are completely different. So how do we represent this mathematically? Our initial state is the same, S set plus, but here on this sketch, first we measure Sx, so Sx operator will appear first here. Then we measure S set, so S set operator will appear next from left to right. Okay, the rightmost operator will act first, and then the next operator like that. And what is the result? There is 50% probability for S set plus state and 50% probability for S set minus state. Right, 1 by 2. The probability is 1 by 2. So the we can write the output state as a linear combination of S set plus and S set minus, with probability 1 by 2. That means the expansion coefficient for each state will be 1 by root 2, square root of the probability. So what you get is 1 by root 2 S set plus 1 by root 2 S set minus. Okay, so let us look at we start with the same initial state, but here we sequentially measure S set first and Sx next. This is our output state. Then we start with the same initial state and measure Sx first and S set next, and this is the output state. So what you see is that the final states are completely different. Okay, even though the initial states are the same. Okay, so we can conclude that this Sx S set acting on S set plus state is not equal to S set Sx acting on S set plus state, correct? This is not equal to this. Clearly the final states are different. Okay, so these two Sx and Sz operators, when they sequentially act on the same initial state, when you change the order, the outcome is different. Okay, this is what we get. So from the analysis of the two sequential Stern-Gerlach experiments, we have got this result. Now this result is true for any arbitrary ket. That means even if the initial state is something else, okay, not S set plus, but some other state, let us say some arbitrary state ket alpha, okay, then also this result is correct. This we can verify by experiment. Okay, so we can change the initial state repeatedly and then we can verify this. That is Sx S set acting on a general, an arbitrary ket alpha in this order, S set first, Sx next. This is not equal to S set Sx acting on the same arbitrary ket alpha. Okay, Sx first and S set next. So if this relationship is true for any arbitrary ket, okay, then we can say that Sx Sh is not equal to Sh Sx. That means this operator relationship is true. If this is true for any arbitrary ket, this part is not equal to this part. I mean, this is a vector, right? This is a modified vector. This modified vector is different from this modified vector for any initial ket, arbitrary initial ket. Then we can say that this vector, I mean this operator, okay, is not equal to this operator. So this is an operator relation, okay. Or we can say Sx Sh minus Sh Sx is not equal to 0. This difference between the two operator parts is not equal to 0. Now, we can introduce a shorthand notation for this difference. Let Sx comma Sh in this square bracket is equal to Sx Sh minus Sh Sx. Okay, this Sx Sh minus Sh Sx, we can use this shorthand notation Sx comma Sh in square bracket. Also, that is Sh, what is Sh comma Sx? This will be Sh Sx minus Sx Sh. Look at the order. If it is Sx comma Sh, this into this, right, minus the reverse order. If it is Sh into Sx, first one into second one will appear first, minus the reverse. Okay, and this square bracket or this type of a form is called the commutator. That means this difference between the product of the two operators and the difference is called a commutator, and this is the shorthand notation for the commutator. Okay, let's talk in general terms. So this shows that this commutator between Sx and Sh is non-zero. Okay, so if the commutator between Sx and Sh is not zero, we can say that Sx and Sh are non-commuting operators. Okay, these are non-commuting operators. Sx and Sh are non-commuting operators. If we talk in general terms, let us say consider two operators A and B. Okay, then if AB is not equal to BA. Okay, if AB is not equal to BA, they are called non-commuting operators. That means if you change the order in any sequential measurement, just like as we have seen in the case of sequential Stern-Gerlach experiments, in any sequential measurement, if we measure B first and then A, see this is acting on some ket vector from left to right. The result, the final state will be different from measuring A first and then B. Okay, that means if we change the order of two physical quantities in a sequential measurement, we get two different final states. That means this product of operators is different from this product of operators. This operator relationship is true. In other words, AB minus BA is not equal to 0. Or if we use our shorthand notation, this Sx Sh minus Sh Sx is used as in square bracket Sx comma Sh. In the same way, AB minus BA we can say in square bracket A comma B. Okay. Then we say that A and B are non-commuting operators. Okay. A and B are non-commuting operators. So for two non-commuting operators, the commutator between the two operators is non-zero. Okay, remember that this commutator is an operator, because this commutator is nothing but AB minus BA. AB is an operator, BA is an operator. So we are taking difference of two operators, which itself is an operator. So if two operators are non-commuting operators, the commutator between them is non-zero. Then if two operators are commuting operators, what is the situation? AB equals BA. That means the order in which we make the measurement in a sequential measurement of two operators or two physical quantities, the order is not important. In whatever order we measure, we get the same final state. So then AB is equal to BA, or we can say AB minus BA equals 0. That is commutator A comma B equal to 0. In such a situation, we can say A and B are commuting operators. So, for two commuting operators, the commutator is 0. For two non-commuting operators, the commutator is non-zero. In this particular case of Spin-Half systems, Sz and Sx are non-commuting operators. Okay, that's why we get this type of a result. One point that we have to be careful is whether two operators are commuting, or we also say commutative, okay, or non-commuting. Also we can say non-commutative. So if whether two operators are commutative or non-commutative, that relationship should be valid, should be established in connection with by applying on a general ket vector. So my point is, if this AB acting on a general ket vector or an arbitrary ket vector in the vector space of the system is equal to BA acting on a general ket vector. That means if this relationship is true for any arbitrary vector in the vector space, then only we can say that AB is equal to BA. These operators are commutative, or A comma B, the commutator is equal to 0. Okay. Also, AB acting on a general ket vector is not equal to BA acting on a general ket vector. Okay. This is true for any arbitrary ket vector in the vector space. Then only we can say that AB is not equal to BA, or the commutator between A and B is non-zero. My point is, whether you want to establish whether you want to say that two operators are commutative or commuting, or two operators are non-commutative or non-commuting, that result should be established in connection with a general ket vector or arbitrary ket vector in the vector space. Or in other words, that relationship should be true for any vector in the vector space. Only then we can say that. Okay. Sometimes it's possible that this relationship is true for a particular vector in the vector space, but need not be true for all vectors. Then we cannot say that two operators are commuting or commutative. Also, in this case also, this may be true, but in the case of non-commuting case, we need to show that this is true for any one vector in the vector space. Because if it is non-commutative for any one vector in the vector space, we can say that the operators are non-commutative. But in order to show that they are commutative, they are commuting, then this is true for any vector in the vector space. Okay. So this type of commutation relation should be commutation. We can say only if it is true for all the vectors in the vector space. But in the non-commuting case, we can say that this may be, if this is satisfied for any one vector in the vector space, we can say that the vectors are non-commuting. For example, in the sequential Stern-Gerlach experiments regarding Sz and Sx that we have discussed, if we can show that Sz operating on a particular ket vector like Sz plus, as in our particular example, initial state was Sz plus. So Sx Sz acting on Sz plus is different from Sz Sx, changing the order, acting on the same ket vector. Then we can say that they are non-commutative. We don't have to show it for any other vector also. Because if we show for any one vector in the vector space, it means that they are non-commutative. But in order to show commutative nature, in order to show that two operators are commutative, we have to show that they should be true for all vectors in the vector space, or any arbitrary vector in the vector space. That's the we should be careful when we say that two operators are commutative, because this vector identity is equal to this vector identity only if it's true for any vector, any arbitrary vector. That means all vectors in the vector space. Let's consider some properties and identities of commutator. One is commutator between two operators A and B is equal to minus BA. If we change the order, there is a minus sign. This can be directly seen by inspection. Then commutator between an identity operator and a given operator. Okay, this is 0. Okay, if you expand it, IA minus AI. I into A is same as A. AI is also A, so the difference is 0. And I can add one more here. Commutator between a scalar, small letter a, and an operator a. Okay, small a is a scalar. This is scalar. Now this you can write as, if you expand, you can see that this is a into capital A minus capital A into A. Okay. In this expression, you can take a small a outside. That means you can write this as A times identity A. Okay. And this is 0. Then the result is again 0. Okay, so the commutator between an identity operator and any operator is 0. Commutator between a scalar and any operator is 0. And if a scalar appears any one term in the commutator, it can be expressed like this: A times the commutator. Okay. For example, here, if a scalar appears here, which you can take it outside, small a times A comma B is equal to the small a times the commutator A comma B. I mean, small a times A comma B you can write as the scalar you can take out, as in this case. Okay. In this particular case, it is 0. And another trivial result which is obvious from here is commutator of an operator with itself is always 0. Okay. Then two non-trivial results. This one. Suppose here you have in the first factor you have two operators A, B, then comma C. Okay, A, B, comma C. This you can expand as A, B, C plus A, C, B. Okay. So the point here is, if you expand this, you can remember it like this. In this product, you can first take the one operator outside. A you can take out, then you get this A times BC. Okay. See, A appears on the left side here, but so when you take it outside, it should appear on the left side of the commutator. Plus, then you can take B outside. Now B appears on the right side of this product, so when you take B outside, it should also appear on the right side of the commutator. Remaining term is AC. And this is an important identity. Okay, you can try to prove this. You can start from the right side, expand this part and this part. You can expand. Some terms will cancel, and you can end up here. Or better, maybe you can start from here. Okay. Yeah. Okay, maybe right to left will be easier. You can try that. So then next is the same identity you can express in another way. Suppose on the first factor you have only one operator, on the second factor you have two operators BC, like this. Okay, how do you expand it? You can use the same rule in the first identity. That means from here you can first take B outside. But when you take B outside, B appears on the left side, so it should also appear on the left side of the commutator. The remaining terms are A comma C. Okay, plus now you can take C outside, but C is on the right side, so it will appear on the right side of the commutator. Remaining terms are A comma B, so it is A comma B C. Okay. So these two identities are very important. In many calculations, we can use these identities for easy results. So you try to prove these two identities starting from the right side. Okay. And another important result is commutator A, B, C. Okay, so that means in this commutator, the second term is another commutator. You remember that commutator is an operator. It's a difference between two operators, so it itself is an operator. So the operator on the second operator in the commutator is itself another commutator. Okay, this plus. Now you add two more terms by cyclically changing A, B and C. Okay, now in the second term, A becomes B, B becomes C and C becomes A, plus, and the third term B becomes C, okay, and C becomes A becomes B. Okay, there are three cyclic terms and this is equal to 0. Okay, this also you can try to prove. Now this is called, this is similar to Jacobi identity in classical mechanics. Okay. So these are some results, results and properties and identities in commutator. And here these two identities are very important. This may be useful for many calculations. In many situations, a product may be appear here in the first factor or in the second factor where we can use this. Okay. Next, let us try to establish the commutation relations of relations between Sx, Sy, Sz and S square. Okay, different spin operators. These are different spin operators for each component, and this S square is defined as Sx square plus Sy square plus Sz square. So let us try to establish the commutation relations between these operators. And this is a very important idea, and this will be useful for when you discuss angular momentum also. Okay. Okay. So I will quote some results from the previous classes. In the previous classes, we have used we have expressed Sx, Sy and Sz in terms of the eigenkets of Sz operator. Okay. We have used this type of a notation. This Sz plus, we have used simply ket plus, and for Sz minus, we have used ket minus. These are the eigenkets of Sz operator, and using these eigenkets, we have used the short notation ket plus and ket minus for these eigenkets. So we can express these three operators Sz, Sx and Sy in terms of these eigenkets of Sz operator. Okay. We know that each operator can be expressed in terms of its own eigenkets, and so obviously Sz can be expressed in terms of these, but Sx and Sy also, they can be in the previous class we have done this, they can be expressed in terms of their own eigenkets, and then these eigenkets like Sx plus, Sx minus, also Sy plus, Sy minus, they can be expressed in terms of these eigenkets of Sz operator. That's the way. So we have established these results in the previous classes. I am just quoting them. So this Sz is h cross by 2, which is common, ket plus, ket plus bra vector plus minus ket minus bra vector minus. This is Sz operator. This is very direct. And similarly, Sx operator we can write as h cross by 2 ket plus bra vector minus plus ket minus bra vector plus. This is not directly obvious. As I told you, Sx operator we express in terms of Sx plus and Sx minus, the eigenkets of Sx operator, and this Sx plus and Sx minus can be re-expressed in terms of ket plus and ket minus, which are the eigenkets of Sz operator. This way. In order to get these results, you can refer the previous class. Similarly, Sy we can write as h cross by 2 minus I ket plus bra vector minus plus I ket minus bra vector plus. So this was a particular choice. We have chosen some phase factor delta in such a way that the matrix elements of Sx operator are completely real and matrix elements of Sy operator are completely imaginary. Okay, that's a particular choice. Okay, so as I told you, these three results were established in one of the previous classes. You can refer that. Now starting from here, what we do is, let us evaluate Sx, Sy. Okay, this product. So we have this Sx operator, we have Sy operator. Take the product. So h cross by 2 into h cross. So I will completely write in detail one calculation, and then the rest of them you can do it as homework. So this product h cross by 2 into h cross by 2 is h cross square by 4 into. Now there will be 4 terms. There are 2 terms here, 2 terms here. So there will be 4 terms. Let us write them explicitly. So this term into this term. Okay. So what you get is there is a minus sign, minus I. Okay. Then you have ket plus bra vector minus into ket plus bra vector minus, right? So what happens is, this is the order, ket plus bra vector minus. This acts on this one. So this bra vector will act on this ket vector. So we have ket plus minus. Okay, this is clear. We are taking Sx into Sy. So Sx will come on the left side, then Sy will come. So we are taking this product like this. Okay, this term, these 2 terms will come here. When you take the product, this ket will be here. This bra vector act on this ket vector. So it will be like this. Bra vector minus, then ket plus. It's an inner product. Okay. Then this bra vector minus will be there. Okay, so this is the first term. Then this into this. What do you get? This I will be there. This into this. So this ket will be there. Then this bra vector will act on this ket vector. So we have bra vector minus, then ket minus, and inner product you have here. Then you have this bra vector, additional bra vector plus here. Okay, so I have multiplied this term with this one, this term with this one. Then you take this term, multiply this with this. So what you have? Minus I. Okay, this is appearing first, then on the left side. So you have ket minus bra vector plus, but this bra vector is acting on this ket vector, right? So you have ket plus, then bra vector minus. Then this into this, you have this I, and this is appearing on the left side. So we have ket minus bra vector plus, but this bra vector plus is acting on this one. So ket minus, then bra vector plus. These are the 4 terms. So in these 4 terms, in each term you have an inner product, right? This is an inner product. This is an inner product. This is an inner product. Here also you have an inner product. What is the result of this inner product? This is the inner product between ket minus and ket plus. We know that these are the eigenkets of Sz operator and they are mutually orthogonal. Eigenkets of any Hermitian operator are mutually orthogonal. So these are mutually orthogonal. So what is the inner product? It will be 0. What is this inner product? It's the inner product between ket minus with itself. And this is the normalized eigenkets. So this is 1. Similarly, this is 1 and this is 0. Okay. So there are 4 terms, but 2 terms will be 0. So what are the non-zero terms? We have h cross square by 4. Okay, this I and I can take outside. So we have I h cross square by 4. Okay, then this one. Ket plus, bra vector plus. Then there is this is a minus sign. Ket minus, bra vector minus. Okay. Okay. Now this I can write as, look at this term, Sz. Sz is h cross by 2 ket plus bra vector plus minus ket minus bra vector minus. So this part is same. Okay, what we can do is we can take an h cross by 2 from here. So I can write I h cross by 2. into what is the remaining thing, h cross by 2 times this, h cross by 2 times this is s set. So this is simply ih cross by 2 times s set. Okay, so sx into sy is ih cross by 2 times s set. Now similarly we can find out sy into sx. This part I am not doing, you can do it similarly. You have sy here, sx here, multiply. This time this will be on the left side, sy operator will be on the left side, sx operator will be on the right side. So you can do this. You can show that this is equal to minus I h cross by 2 s set. So this step you have to prove. Okay, minus I h cross by 2 s set. Then from this, so we have sx sy is ih cross by 2 s set. Sy sx is minus ih cross by 2 s set. Then from this we can do this sx sy. You can subtract this from this. Sx xy minus sy sx is equal to ih cross by 2 s set minus of this one. So minus and minus will be plus. So what you get is these two terms are magnitudes are same. So what you get is 2ih cross by 2 s set. 2 will cancel. What you get is ih cross s set. Now this is the commutator sx comma sy. That is equal to ih cross s set. So we have established the commutation relation between sx and sy. Okay. And that's equal to ih cross times s set. Okay. Now similarly we can establish the commutation relation between other pairs of the spin operator. That is, I can say, if I can write it cyclically, that is sy comma s set is equal to, that means instead of x comes y comes z, then what you get is ih cross sx. Okay. Similarly, then s set comma sx. This is ih cross sy. Okay. So here we have established one commutation relation. These two commutation relations sy sz is equal to ih cross sx. Similarly, commutator sz sx equal to ih cross sy. These two commutation relations you can try to establish in the same way. Okay. So what you have to do is, for example, in this case, you have to find out sy sz. Sy is here, sz is here. Find sy sz minus sz sy. That you have to do. Then you can show that that's equal to this one. Similarly, here also you can do. Okay, so take the product and subtract, reverse the order and subtract, and then see. So this is the commutation relation between the two components. Now we can combine the commutation relations, these three commutation relations, using a concise notation, using Levi-Civita symbol. Let us see how it can be done. So these are the commutation relations between the components of spin operator that we have established now. Now, what is a concise way of writing these relations in a single expression? That is Si Sj equals ih cross epsilon ijk sk, where this I, J, K are indices which have the values 1, 2, 3. On this 1, 2, 3 are same as x, y, z. 1 stands for x, 2 stands for y, and 3 stands for z. These are the three indices corresponding to the three components in the three-dimensional space. So this is the concise way of expressing these three commutation rules. And here, as we have specified, I, J, K stands for 1, 2, 3, or equivalently x, y, z. But there is also an I here. This I is nothing but square root of minus 1. Okay, so this I is different from this I. We have used the same notation, but understand that they are different. Okay. So this is square root of minus 1, the imaginary term, but this is just an index. Okay. let us try to verify that this relation, this concise expression stands for these three relations. Let us see. First of all, let us notice that in this expression, k is a repeated index. Okay, k comes here and here, and according to Einstein's summation convention, any repeated index should be summed over all possible values. So we can say, we can write this as Si comma Sj equals IH cross times, then we have to sum over here. So we have epsilon ij, let us say ij, let us use as ij, but k value we have to sum over. So what are the possible values of k? 1, 2 and 3. Then the first term is ij1 s1 plus epsilon ij2 s2 plus epsilon ij3 s3. Okay, this is the expansion. Now before proceeding further, we have to understand the properties of this epsilon ijk. Epsilon ijk is the Levi-Civita tensor. Okay, this epsilon ijk is called Levi-Civita tensor. Okay, and its properties are one. Okay, so these ijk have possible values 1, 2, 3. I has values 1, 2, 3. J has 1, 2, 3. K has 1, 2, 3. So corresponding to different values. Okay, consider this epsilon 1, 2, 3, and its cyclic permutations. That means epsilon 1, 2, 3 equals epsilon. Next permutation, cyclic permutation is 2, 3, 1. Next is 3, 1, 2. All these are equal to plus 1. Okay, epsilon 1, 2, 3 and its cyclic permutations have the value plus 1. So 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2. And secondly, you start with epsilon 2, 1, 3. Okay, and its cyclic permutations. Okay, that means epsilon 2, 1, 3, epsilon next one will be 3, 2, 1. Next cyclic permutation will be 1, 3, 2. All these have the value minus 1. Okay, you can notice that there is a relationship between the two. For example, epsilon 1, 2, 3. If you interchange the first two indices, you get this. So interchanging any two indices resulting in a minus sign. Here also 2, 3, 1, you interchange the first two indices, you get this. 3, 1, 2, interchange the first two indices, you get this. Okay, so in this interchanging any two indices, you will get a minus sign. And thirdly, third property is epsilon ijk equal to 0 if any two indices are the same. If I or j or k, if their values, any two indices have the same value, then epsilon ijk will be 0. That means, for example, epsilon 1, 2, 1 or 1, 1, 3, all these things are 0. Okay, if any two indices in ijk and ij and k, if any two numbers, any two indices are same, then the value is 0. So these are the three properties of Levi-Civita tensor. Then let's use these properties in this evaluation. So we have got this epsilon si sj, I can expand like this. Okay, now this it is clear that if I is equal to j, then the right hand side will be 0. Okay, for example, si comma si, if j is equal to I, then here you have to put j equal to I. Then these two indices are same, this term will be 0, this term will be 0, this term will be 0. So the two indices I and j cannot be same. Okay, this also satisfies the commutator property that commutator of an operator with itself is always 0. So that is embedded here. Si comma si will be 0. That is ensured by the property of this property of Levi-Civita tensor. So I should be not equal to j. Okay, let us take I is equal to 1 and j is equal to 2. Okay, then what do you get? S1 comma S2. Okay, so let us substitute that. So I is cross, let's substitute that. So I equal to 1, j equal to 2. Okay, then what do you get? Epsilon, put I equal to 1, j equal to 2, then already you have a 1 here, then here I equal to 1, j equal to 2, then you have a 2 here, epsilon 1, 2, 3, S3. Okay. Now according to the third property, this term will be 0 because two indices are same. This term will be 0 because two indices are same. Only this term will be non-zero. So what you get? S1 comma S2 is equal to IH cross. What is this epsilon 1, 2, 3? According to the first property, epsilon 1, 2, 3 is plus 1. Okay. So what you get? IH cross times S3. S1 comma S2 is equal to IH cross times S3. If you use this notation, this is same as Sx comma Sy is equal to IH cross times Sh. Okay, that means this relation is there. Now in order to get the other relationship, other two relationship, you can take other choices of I and j. For example, in order to get this, take I is equal to 2, j is equal to 3. I is equal to 2, j equal to 3. Then you will get this relationship. In order to get this, take I is equal to 3, j is equal to 1. Okay, then you get the third relation. That too you can verify. So it is it's clear that this single relationship represents the commutation relations between the three components of the spin operator. Let us define a square operator like this. A square operator is Sx square plus Sy square plus Sz square. Okay. So already we have seen the expressions for Sx, Sy and Sz operators in terms of the eigenkets of Sz operator, in terms of ket plus and ket minus. So let us multiply the operator expression with itself, I mean operating twice, and see what is the expression for each. So let's start with Sz square. Okay. What was the expression for Sz? Sz is h cross by 2 ket plus bra vector plus minus ket minus bra vector minus. This was the expression for Sz. So what is Sz square? This into this, the same. So what you get is h cross square by 4. Okay. And this multiplied by itself. Okay. Then what you have? Maybe I will repeat Sz once again for convenience. Okay. So first you multiply h cross by 2 into h cross by 2. We have h cross square by 4. First you multiply this with this. Okay. Then what you get is an inner product between bra vector plus and ket vector plus, which is 1, plus which is 1. So essentially what is remaining is ket plus bra vector plus. So ket plus bra vector plus. Then this into this. Then the inner product is between bra vector plus and ket vector minus, which is 0 because they are mutually orthogonal. So this term will be 0. Similarly, this term will be 0. You have an inner product between bra vector minus and ket vector plus. That will be 0. They are mutually orthogonal. And this into this. Then minus of minus will be plus. The inner product is between this bra vector and this ket vector, which is 1. Bra vector minus ket vector minus 1. So we have plus. Then the remaining is plus ket minus bra vector minus. Okay. So this is Sz square. But when you look at this one, ket plus bra vector plus ket minus bra vector minus. This is the completeness relationship of these eigenkets. Okay. Remember the completeness relationship of a set of eigenkets is or set of base kets. You can write as summation over A prime, bra vector A prime, ket vector A prime, bra vector A prime is equal to identity operator. That is a completeness condition for a set of base kets. And here this particular spin half system, the vector space is two-dimensional. So there are only two base kets, and this ket plus and ket minus are eigenkets of Sz operator, a Hermitian operator. So they can be considered as the base kets. So this is the completeness condition for these base kets, and this should be equal to identity operator. Okay, so Sz square is h cross square by 4 times identity operator. Now similarly, you can show that Sx square is also h cross square by 4 times identity. Sy square is h cross square by 4 times identity. Earlier we have written down the expressions for Sx and Sy also. In the same way you can do the calculation and you can show that Sx square is h cross square by 4 times identity. Similarly Sy square also. That you can verify. Now combining these three, what is S square operator? S square operator is Sx square plus Sy square plus Sz square. These three are same. So what you get is 3 by 4 h cross square times identity operator. So S square operator is a scalar multiple of identity operator. Okay. Therefore, now let us try to calculate the commutation relation between S square operator and any component of the spin operator Si, where I is x, y or z, or 1, 2 or 3. Now this is equal to, instead of S square operator, let us substitute this. So 3 by 4 h cross square times identity, comma Si. Now a scalar times identity, comma, so if you have a commutation rule like this, then the scalar you can take out. So this is 3 by 4 h cross square times identity, comma Si. Now commutation between any operator and identity operator is 0. So this is 0. Okay. So the commutation between S square operator and Si, that is S square Sx, S square Sy, S square Sz is 0. A commutation between S square and any component of the spin operator will be 0. So the fundamental commutation rule between the components of spin operator are two. One is Si Sj is IH cross times epsilon ijk sk, where ijk are xyz or 1, 2, 3. And second is S square Si, commutation between S square and any component of spin operator is 0. Okay, these are the fundamental commutation relations between the components of a spin operator, and these are very general. We will later see that when we study angular momentum operator, orbital angular momentum operator, and this is spin angular momentum operator. Similarly, orbital angular momentum operator also satisfy the same commutation rules. Okay, Li Lj is IH cross times epsilon ijk lk, where Li Lj Lk are components of orbital angular momentum operator. Similarly, L square times any component will be L square, commutation between L square and any component will be 0. So this is very general. We have developed these commutation rules using the simplest possible system, spin half system, and this particular relation S square is some scalar multiple of identity operator. This is true only for spin half system. For higher spin situation, S square operator is not like this, not a scalar times identity operator. But still, even for any higher spin system, this relation is always valid. S square, commutation between S square and any component of spin operator is 0. Okay. So this is a very general result. Even though we have developed these results using spin half system, these results are very general. That's the point. Now we have seen commutator between two operators, and anti-commutator between two operators can be defined like this. We use this notation, curly bracket a comma b, and this is a shorthand notation for AB plus BA. This is called anti-commutator. AB minus BA is the commutator. AB plus BA is called anti-commutator. Okay. Now let us consider the anti-commutation relation between the components of spin operator. Okay, they are important. So as an example, let us consider the components of spin operator. Okay, so consider Sx comma Sy. So this is Sx Sy plus Sy Sx. Okay, let us quote from the previous results. Sx Sy, its value was I h cross by 2 into Sh. Okay, and Sy Sx was minus I h cross by 2 into Sh. Okay, this we have established previously. So what is the result? This is 0. Okay, and similarly you can show that if you take it cyclically, Sy Sh is 0. Similarly, Sh next is Sx is 0. Okay, so anti-commutator between different spin components are 0. Now consider the anti-commutator between a spin component with itself. Consider this. What is Sx comma Sx? So this is Sx into Sx, that is Sx square, plus again Sx into Sx, that is Sx square. Okay, according to this anti-commutator, definition of anti-commutator. So this is equal to 2 Sx square. Okay, now this we have established already that Sx square is h cross square by 4 times identity operator. Okay, so if you multiply with 2, what you get is h cross square by 2 times identity. Similarly, you can show that Sy anti-commutator Sy with itself is h cross square by 2 times identity, and anti-commutator of Sn with itself is h cross square by 2 times identity. So among the spin components, anti-commutator of two different spin components is 0. Anti-commutator of a spin component with itself is h cross square by 2. So combining the two, we can say Si comma Sj, anti-commutator of spin components, is equal to h cross square by 2 times delta ij, where delta ij is the Kronecker delta. So it means that if I is not equal to j, that means if the spin components are different, the two spin components are different, result is 0. That is what we get here. Okay, if I is equal to j, then this Kronecker delta is 1 and you get h cross square by 2. That's what we get here. Okay, so this is an example of anti-commutator relations, and this is the anti-commutator relation between spin components. But here what we have to remember is, earlier we have seen the commutator relation, two commutator relation between spin components, between different spin components, as well as between S square and any spin component. These commutation relations are very general in the sense that they are true for higher spin components, they are true for orbital angular momentum components, okay, and total angular momentum components. But the anti-commutator relation between spin components, this is true, this is a special case, this is not general. This is true only for spin half system. Okay, true only for spin half system. So this anti-commutator relation is a special property, a characteristic property of spin half system. The commutation relations, even though we have developed them using spin half system, those are very general. Okay, but this is special, but true only for spin half system, this particular anti-commutation relation. For higher spin systems, we have to establish separate different anti-commutation relation, not this one. Okay, that will be different. So this particular anti-commutation relation is the signature of spin half system. Okay, so in this class we have discussed what is a commutator, and what was the motivation for defining a commutator. Okay, so this is connected with the result that we obtain when we do sequential measurements of two operators, one after the other. So when we change the order, we get a different final state. Then that means that they are non-commutative. Okay. So how we define a commutator and what are the properties and identities of a commutator. Then we discussed in details the commutation relations between different spin components and also between spin component and S square operator. And also we have considered the anti-commutation relation, and importantly commutation relations are between spin components are general. They are true for higher spin states and orbital angular momentum operators. Whereas anti-commutation relation is, this particular anti-commutation relation is a special case of spin half system.